And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our very first episode of the new year. So, Happy New Year. I am your hostess, Zoro for Me 3, and I am here with our lore masters, Rhojin Quest and HB Fox, as we are here for our segment of Sonata, where we're going to be talking about the Sonata lore that HB Fox runs us through once a year, and as well as we're going to ask him some questions at the second half of the show for character questions and any GM questions, because he did do, again, Sonata, as well as Null Way Out. So if we have any questions, we will answer them both off of our social media and chat if you guys are live right now. So yeah, so first things first, tonight is our very last giveaway for December. So those of you who are watching us live right now, exclamation point December for your chance to win. I actually have this prepared. The pink señorita. I love saying that, señorita.
It's such a nice shade of pink too.
It is. It's a very soft, translucent pink with just a hint of like a shimmery purple kind of glitter in it. It's really pretty. Escándalo. Just all of it, all the novella. Yeah, so we will, since this is a short show, unlike our previous shows, this is open all the way until the end. So you have the next hour and a half to enter. Once again, exclamation mark December for a chance to win this, and you must be present to claim it when we do it towards the end of this stream. So I'll go ahead and I'll put that away for now. So, first things first. Fox, we're going to ask the very broad question, and of course, Rhojin, feel free to ask your own questions as well, since we're probably going to be slightly focused on Fox, and I definitely don't want to leave you out on this. What was your inspiration for Sonata? And for those of you who don't know, really quick, Sonata is a harsh winter wonderland kind of setting with lichens and a lot of shadow and darkness happening around it too. It's definitely not a so happy place compared to some of the other campaigns we have. So just a little background for that. So again, Fox, what was your inspiration to do this little annual mini story to present to all of us?
So, as far as fantasy goes, ever since I was just a wee little lad, there's two things that I have always been entirely obsessed with. One of them is dragons, and the other is werewolves. And as I started to get into D&D and tabletops and the culture of it and the idea of running my own games, I knew at some point I wanted to do an adventure that had werewolves as a part of it in some way. And I thought long and hard about how to do that and what I wanted to do. And I had a pretty good idea of the type of environment that I wanted to create. And when we made the decision to solidify this world that we've made for most of our games, I knew that was the perfect place for that type of adventure. And it was actually watching, I don't remember the name of it, but it was a Critical Role thing. It was the one shot that Liam ran that was a werewolf game, a werewolf themed game.
It's called like Lorelei's something. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but yes.
Watching that was what made me decide, yes, I have to do this story that's in my head. I want to do it. I'm fairly new to DMing, but I want to make my attempt at this. And as I got
was this technically your first one?
Yes and no. It was. It wasn't the first time I DM'd something.
Oh, okay.
But it was my first real adventure. Because the previous things that I had DM'd were like single session dungeon runs and stuff like that. Nothing that had like a deep story or anything to it.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
And so when I started writing the key points about this story, I realized that it was not going to be able to be contained to a single mini adventure. So after the end of Sonata 1, I knew there had to be more.
So, the thing we always keep saying, campaign? Because this is our third installment of this game, and it's kind of become an annual thing that we all look forward to. And I know that we have another one that may come up a little bit sooner than normal, possibly. So just to throw it out there, no pressure. Would you consider making this a campaign in the future?
I would consider it after Sonata 4. And
oh, okay.
If several of us, if several of the key Sonata players actually had the time to do it, I wouldn't restrict it just to the existing Sonata players. But if I ran it as a campaign, I would want the bulk of the original Sonata players to be a part of it, because they all know the world and have helped bring the world to the point that it is in at the start of a campaign.
Well, now you're going to have to make me choose between my 4 Eladrins on which one I'm going to be.
Well, if it was a campaign, and Shadow Fox is going to hate this, if it was a campaign, it would be starting at level 1.
Well, I'm actually okay with that. We all know how much he hates that.
I like suffering.
See, he tells me, he's just like, you know what, if we're gonna do it, can I get a free feat? And I'm like, that's not how it works. Be a human if that's the case. So, yeah, and but we level up pretty quickly though. At least the first 3 or 4 levels.
Yeah, the first 1 to 5 levels of any campaign always go by fairly quickly. And if I turn Sonata into a campaign, there's at least 2 people that would be able to play existing characters if they wanted to. One of them is Shadow Fox, because he has made friends with an Archfey. They could do Fey bullshittery to kind of reset his character. And the other is Rhojin. You just kind of hit Forge on the back of the head hard enough and he'll reset.
Where's the reset button?
He gets a factory reset.
Oh, that's terrible. Well, we all know, and we've talked about this before, where he technically wouldn't play Forge in the full campaign.
Yeah.
No, I would play somebody brand new. I have somebody that I've been wanting to play. I've talked to both of you extensively about this character, and I would bring them into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that character is sitting off in the wings until HP Fox brings in a full campaign.
One day.
Yeah.
You guys will wear me down one day.
Oh, we do it every year when it comes up too. Although Shadow Fox has been more adamant even afterwards. He's like, hey, poke. That would be exciting. So with the fusion, because you've actually, like you said, your passions are dragons and werewolves, and you've actually kind of had a nice fusion of the two. Even though we've technically only seen one dragon so far, it became a very big part of this world that we've created as a whole, and kind of mixed it into your story. So what was your inspiration, if you're allowed to give it away, of course, the shadows that are kind of slinking over this world and kind of slowly destroying it, ?
Yeah. So another thing that I've always been a fan of is grim, dark storytelling, where there isn't necessarily a nice, bright, happy conclusion to a story, but it's not a bad ending type of thing. Bad stuff happens. The quote unquote heroes make it out at the end, but they did what they had to do to reach that end type of thing. I've always been a big fan of that sort of storytelling. You saw it a lot in classical tales like Frankenstein and Van Helsing and stuff like that.
Oh,
and I wanted to take that type of story and put it into a fantasy environment. And since I also wanted werewolves to be a part, it just felt like Sonata was the right place to do that.
Yeah, and I can already tell that, well, we already know this is kind of your baby and your project and everything. And I would assume that if you were the player yourself, I would imagine you would pick Antia, because she seems to be kind of your baby for all of them, if I'm guessing correctly.
Yeah, originally she was a player character of mine for a game that's not connected to our games in any way. She was
Nice.
just a temporary backup character that I made while my original character was imprisoned by an Oni. It was a whole thing. There was sacrificing.
Oh
no! So I played her for like 2 sessions in that campaign before she was out of there again. And I really kind of fell in love with the concept of that character. So I developed her further once I started writing for Sonata. And knowing that she wasn't ever going to be a player character, I could give her the bullshit abilities that you give NPCs that you'd never give a player character.
Yep.
And I decided to make her like a level 20 plus arcanist, a wizard.
I mean, why not?
That is kind of focusing on the world in the same way that the players were going to be, but going down a different parallel path with her goals.
And I imagine that you altered this for the story, of course. This is just me assuming, but it was revealed towards the end of the most recent installment of Sonata that she's a very unique human, a very unique werewolf, that she has some Fey blood in her.
Yes.
Are you able to give us a little bit more about that and about her bloodline at all?
Yeah, so when I created her as an NPC character, that was around the time that Wizards really started playing with the concept of different Aasimar bloodlines, and them not just being strictly celestial creatures. And knowing that she was going to be a werewolf and part of a werewolf family, it just felt very fitting that Faye was a part of that. So I toyed around with her being a Faye Aasimar, and that's what she is. It doesn't come out in like super evident ways. At a glance, you might just think she's a tan half-elf or something. But she does have those Faye Aasimar abilities where it allows her to like charm people and persuade people in certain ways and kind of do a bit of trickery. And she has that Faye trickery to her as well, though it didn't come out at all in Sonata 3 because it was a bit of a dire situation in that campaign. But
dire like direwolf.
Yeah, dire like
sorry,
direwolf.
Inside joke.
I have done a bit of writing and interaction with her in different stories, and she is I think anyway, of course I'm slightly biased because she's my character, but I think she's a really interesting character because she has a lot of playfulness about her that sort of came out in No Way Out as well, when you found the campsite of hers and the echo stones of hers as well, like making a magic frying pan to break somebody's sword. Like, it's just weird magical Fey nonsense that she loves to do when she has the opportunity to do it.
It's ours now.
Yeah.
But that was actually a cool connection too. And she was already an interesting character to begin with, but when you had that twist with her werewolf form talking and casting magic, that just put in a huge wrench in a lot of things. And like, me as a character was extremely frustrated at the end there, which was great because that was great storytelling. But like, as a player, I'm just like, I fucking can't do anything, and this frustrates me because this creature's powerful.
Yeah, her relationship with her werewolf form is like one of my favorite character interactions that I've written, because it's very much like a Jekyll and Hyde scenario, where she as herself is sort of calm and collected, intelligent, crafty type of person, but then her other half, the werewolf half, is this conniving, ferocious beast that almost can't be stopped. So one of the things that I've developed with that character is this contest between her normal self and her werewolf self, trying to best each other. She tries to contain the werewolf, and the werewolf tries to fuck up her life, basically, just out of spite.
Yeah, of course.
And that has led to the werewolf becoming quite intelligent themselves, to the point where they're able to use her magic to a certain point.
Now, is that, I would assume maybe that is a huge influence of her Fae side, giving her werewolf side kind of this ability to manipulate her as if they were a separate entity?
It's definitely part of it. One of the things that I did with her whole family, each of them having a werewolf form, is I looked at their backgrounds and used that as an influence for how their werewolf forms will act, and also how, if at all, they're able to control their werewolf forms. And because her Fey blood is so strong, she just is not able to control her werewolf form. I don't know if you've ever tried to contain and control a Fey. Not something that can be done very easily. So
challenge accepted.
It's created this interesting relationship between the two of them.
Yeah, that was absolutely fascinating at the end there, where the second, I don't even think the werewolf spoke yet. I think it cast a spell, and it was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah,
it's
it
not
was
a mindless creature.
Counterspell, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
And the stipulation with the werewolf casting her spells is that it can't cast any spells that require a material component unless it has those components or has a focus.
But it can do concentration.
It can do concentration, it can do verbal, it can do somatic. But Antia's component pouch, unless the werewolf picks that up and takes it with them, it can't use that stuff. So it's generally limited to verbal and somatic unless it actually has the materials.
Which is kind of a scary thought when you think about it, because it is intelligent, and if it knew the bag was nearby, it could have potentially just picked it up and use it.
It could have, yeah. That's kind of a roll-off that I do every time that change happens, to see if the werewolf is intelligent enough at the moment of change to collect those items, or if its natural instincts are in charge at that point.
Which is just crazy. That just definitely threw us in for a loop. The most recent one.
It could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse.
Oh, yeah.
When everyone was gearing up in Antia's room, I did a roll to see which of her spell books she took with her on this adventure.
Oh.
And she ended up taking the one that was fairly tame. So you didn't get the worst
terrifying.
spells.
Still terrifying. Which also brings up another ability that it's kind of the first time we've seen this, and if it's the same thing I'm thinking of, it's starting to be introduced in our third Destiny Forge campaign. I can't remember off the top of my head what they're called, but they're those special crystals, the special mana crystals. And if I remember correctly,
Coalesced mana crystals.
Thank you. Manaless Koa crystals is what I was going to say. I was like, wait, what?
I mean,
my
we were
brain's
close.
not working.
Those were actually something that Raven initially created for his games, and he and I talked about them quite a while ago, and I created an item card out of it, and I knew I wanted to introduce, like, immediately I knew I wanted to introduce them into my games as well. And one of the things that Antia is focused on is pushing magic beyond the limits of the material plane. Pushing things beyond that level 9 cap, pushing legendary and artifact level equipment beyond what it can already do. And she's using those mana crystals in order to augment magic and artifacts to do that.
And we've already gotten a taste of it so far with the first episode of our campaign 3 of Destiny Forge, where we've learned very quickly that the different colors can mean different things. But as far as we know, they have different types of damage depending on, I guess, its size. And they represent the different color schools, if I remember correctly, depending on the color. So what was the one that Saria discovered? I believe it was a light blue one that she found.
Oh, the Ever Ice crystal that she found.
Oh, is that something else entirely?
It was something else entirely.
Okay.
Okay. That was essentially a crafting ingredient. It is an ice crystal that does not melt by ordinary means. You have to use magic in order to melt and reshape it. And that was something that you guys weren't going to benefit from in Sonata 3, but in future Sonatas, because it was given to Antia, it could make an appearance in equipment that is given to people.
Yeah, if I was, I guess if I was any type of spellcaster aside from Druid, I probably would have kept it for myself, but I was just like, I don't know what this is. Oh no! Oh, there we go. Okay. We back? Okay? Are we good?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know what happened. This is why I'm getting a new mic, guys. This is why I'm getting a new mic. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah. Long story short, I was just saying that if I was any other class that was more into the crafting, like a wizard or something, I would have totally kept that. But since Antia's more knowledgeable about them, it made sense to give it to her, especially since it's not a campaign. It's like, when am I going to have downtime to craft and do anything with this stuff? It's just pointless. Exactly. Just give it to the person that can actually use it, and then we'll probably see it in the future. We'll see. So
and I want to start introducing more unique ingredients like that into the stories and the worlds that I'm creating here, because crafting is something that D&D has never handled super well, but players always have really interesting ideas about crafting stuff. So I want to start putting ingredients in front of players and seeing what they do with them.
Yeah, and if there's one thing we're learning, specifically the Withered Wastes and the Mass Effect game, there's a lot more crafting going on. And even though it's just kind of quick little downtime that we're all narrating, there's some really creative stuff that a lot of people are coming up with. So to have those kind of special, unique, never before seen materials would be wonderful to try to craft in the future, especially with those mana crystals that you introduced. I mean, my character, I don't know about anyone else, is already super intrigued and wants to try stuff with this, if it's even possible.
I'm really looking forward to seeing where those end up down the line. Right now, it's a brand new thing. It's a really, really volatile thing that you have to have special training in order to just handle. I couldn't see any of the player characters in the games that I run being to the point where they could handle them in any safe way, but it's something that could be worked towards long term. Like at the beginning of a campaign, you may go, ooh, that's interesting, I want to focus on that. And by the time you're like mid to late campaign, that's when you're starting to be able to handle that stuff.
See, now with stuff like that, with this very unique material, would it be something more like an alchemist kit, or would it just be kind of something that you yourself would have to train yourself to use properly for something so unique?
In the case of the coalesced mana crystals, there is something that I need to make an item card for and haven't. The extraction tools, essentially, for it do exist. They're like ultra rare, and you don't really see people walking around with them, but they do exist. I need to make up the item card for that. And then tools to work them would be different from the extraction tools, but they would be kind of, I imagine, kind of an amalgamation of like gem cutters tools and probably alchemist tools and maybe some smithing stuff in there somewhere. It's something that I could imagine a knowledgeable enough player character creating over time, this tool set to work with that ingredient.
Yeah, that's just something definitely fun, especially if you bring it back into Sonata, and if it does become a campaign, I'm sure that would be a great opportunity to have them in there as well.
Yeah.
Which would be a lot of fun. So yeah, all right, well, credit to Raven for that. That's really awesome. I mean, you're so unique and awesome when it comes to, unique items and stuff like that, but it was really awesome to learn that that's actually Raven's thing that he came up with. That's awesome.
So every time we get blown up by one, blame Raven.
I am 100% on board with that. That's our thing now. So like I said, Rhojin, if you have any questions, feel free to interject anytime about Sonata, since I definitely don't want to leave you out and have you sit there. You look so pretty, but I want you to participate as well. Did you have any questions you want to ask? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, why is Forge's life a living hell right now?
You did that to yourself, sir. You're the one that accepted emotions into your life.
Oh, even before emotions, it's just his life was living hell. He didn't know it until he gained emotions. It's just, oh, I saved one friend. Fuck, now I got to go save another.
Yep. Forge is a really interesting character because he is one that started off without emotions, but surrounded by people that treated him as though he had them, despite knowing he didn't. And watching that kind of evolve from, praise from him dismantling locks to get through doors, to him having a brief moment of being an organic creature with polymorph.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing that change him throughout the 3 adventures we've done so far has been really entertaining from my side. And I love where it's going. Unfortunately, it's going into a world of emotional pain right now.
Oh yeah, and I definitely see Forge, like, by the time like his adventures are done, just being just emotionally dead.
Snowdrop would not allow that.
Hopes for him.
Snowdrop would not allow that.
High hopes.
Yeah.
Like he's just gonna. It's just gonna be one of those things where he's gonna look for a switch to like install to where he can just turn it back off.
Oh no. There is no switch for life.
Because he has emotions. He has emotion now. He can feel sadness. He can't express it though. Because
he's expressed a lot of anger.
Warforged can't cry.
Not even little oil streaks?
No, Warforged cannot physically cry. Any of the negative side of emotions are going to come out in anger.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah. That's very true. And it's kind of good and bad. You experience these emotions, and a lot of crazy shit has been happening. I don't know what the future will hold when we come into Sonata 4, but you at least have a friend that's going to help pick you up and try to see the good with the bad. But at the same time, it's going to be hard because now we have to save another friend, which, despite how he feels, Snowdrop sees a glimmer of hope in everyone, so is definitely going to want to help save him. So you at least have someone to kind of help ground you, and she's going to try her darndest to do it. But we'll see what happens in the next one, especially if there's a bit of a time skip with Forge and his emotions and everything too. So it'll be very interesting. So the next thing I have is Eugene. What the fuck, man?
which part of his story is this directed at?
Yes. Uh,
Understood.
Part of it is because he became this very interesting character where he started off as being like this villain where he kind of had this evil mindset, so they casted him out, came back for revenge. Now he has a family, but only months have gone by. So he probably had this family beforehand, whether it was in secret or not, we don't know. I'm guessing secret. And it's just, what the hell, man? You're not supposed to make me feel for the bad guy.
So his family, he did have well beforehand. I guess it was a secret, but it was a secret because nobody ever thought to seek out that information. Like the Winterclaw clan included, they never thought that he would go out and, you know, settle down and have a family, so they never thought to look to see if he did that. So it was a secret, but not because he kept it a secret.
But he also didn't say anything to them either, so it's kind of...
No, he didn't.
It's kind of half and half there. They
Because
didn't take an interest because they didn't know.
Yeah, and he was exiled at that point as well. When he was exiled from the clan, he ended up in the town of Moordale. And that's where he kind of started to rebuild his life and ended up with a family, but he felt this draw to go back to Cantor and Winterclaw and show the Winterclaw clan that they were in the wrong. Of course, Eugene himself was in the wrong for thinking this way, but he was kind of like, well, they screwed me over, so I'm going to screw them over by showing the world what they actually are. And that's why he drew the Sonata 1 adventurers to Winterclaw in an attempt to reveal to everyone that this is a house of werewolves. Of course, it backfired for him.
Greatly.
Quite badly.
Yeah. Greatly.
He ended up being thrown off that cliff, and he did die.
Yep.
When he hit the bottom, he did die. But like most patrons, his preyed on a moment of weakness in order to get him to sign on, essentially. And you guys did guess it. His patron is the Shadow.
Yep. I knew it!
Yeah. And so he was... I hesitate to say warlock, but he did have warlock abilities. He was a servant of the Shadow in Sonata 2. And he did have his own like free will, and he understood that the Shadow wasn't necessarily a good thing. And so now his anger shifted from being mad at the family that kicked him out to being mad at the people that forced him to make this pact.
It's not our fault,
bro. That's why he tried to kill Durden and Forge and the unfortunate people that were collateral damage by teleporting you guys out into the frigid wastes. Now, he had no idea where that teleportation was going to go.
Right.
His thought was, these are people that are going to the city. They are not equipped for the frigid weather of the far north. So I'm just going to throw them up there somewhere, and they're going to freeze to death. Everything that happened after that teleportation wasn't necessarily his doing.
Right, which made sense because as we witnessed right away, he did the teleportation and then just kind of went off and did his own thing. Yeah. So as a player and actually as a character, it's like, all right, he just tried to get rid of us and it didn't pan out. Not that he knows that at that time.
Yeah.
But it didn't pan out, even though that was terrifying. Because it was like, oh, a lot of darkness, a lot of things. We're on frozen ice. Oh no.
And he knew that the north was the Shadow's territory. So if the cold didn't get you, the Shadow would, was his assumption.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the stuff that was going on up there with the dragon and Antia and all that stuff is, as she explained it in Sonata 3, that was just complete chance that it was happening at the same time. And she was trying to get to Mordale to talk to Eugene. And she happened across the dragon at the time who got the jump on her. She was not prepared for that sort of battle. And then you guys came across and saved the day, and that was the end of that. But Eugene himself he started to take some interesting turns. And I'm still trying to decide how I want to reveal a lot of this information to the players.
Right.
Because it's stuff that you would have discovered immediately after Sonata 3. Like, this is his hometown. It has his house. It has his family. It has his journals. So all of this information is there for you to find. And you would have found it, I'm sure. I feel like you were all the type to scour the place before you just leave.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to reveal a lot of it in the campaign as well, but Durden. Durden is the one that was supposed to discover it all, but instead of asking question, he's just like, nah, fuck this. So
yeah. Fuck
this
shit, I'm out.
I have this information and I'm not sure how to deliver it.
To be fair, that's in character for Durden.
It is.
It was.
It is. It's 100% in character. But I was hoping that I could hook him with Eugene mentioning Taika, I think was the name. Double check that.
Oh God,
no,
it's in my notes
close
somewhere.
All my windows instead. Where did I put it?
So I have a feeling since 4 sounds like it could potentially be the wrap up for this adventure, I feel like it's going to be longer than our normal 4 part because of just the lore dump itself. I would imagine would be quite massive to get out.
I'd like to say it's just going to be a 4-parter, but I said that about Sonata 3 as well, and look what happened.
Well, again, a lot of lore dump happened in the 4th one that was like, oh crap, so by the time we were done with the lore dump, we had 1 or 2 potentially big battles that were like, oh, well, this ain't gonna happen this time around.
Yeah. So the hook that I was trying to grab Durden with was mentioning the name Taiki. I was off by 1 letter, which, for those that didn't know, Taiki was the celestial that is Durden's patron, his warlock patron.
I had a feeling, yeah.
And why would Eugene know that name? What's the connection here? Why am I seeing through his eyes? But instead of asking questions when given the opportunity, Durden just said, no, I'm not doing that. Which I support, which is why I didn't rope him into it and force him to. That's the character's decision, and it was right for the character. But the information that would have been revealed and you guys would have discovered by scouring the town is that Taiki is not the Shadow, as Durden briefly questioned for a moment. They're 2 separate entities. And Eugene serves both the Shadow and Taiki. But the catch is that they are related. The Shadow and Taiki come from the same bloodline. They are
oh snap.
It's hard to call them sisters because they're just kind of like amorphous, genderless celestials.
Cousins?
But they are related in the way that siblings would be, and
Oh,
they
okay.
do come from the celestial planes, but way back, way back, when the war broke out between the world dragons and the forgotten gods, the two celestials were sent to the material plane to help quell that battle. And in that process, they failed, they were felled, and they were trapped. And in the years since, one has grown to be quite hateful and quite angered at many different things on the material and celestial planes. And the other is kind of the opposite of that. So they're like the yin and yang type of thing. And one of them is the shadow and the other is Taiki.
Now, with the shadow, did it have a different form and then was shifted and mutated because of the changes that it experienced and it became what it is now? Or was it already like that and just had more and more anger and inside?
It most certainly has shifted and changed over time, but the corruption that is spreading out throughout this continent is kind of the manifestation of the shadow's anger and frustration with the world and with its home plane and the material plane and the events that have transpired. So it's like a tar pit in a way.
Ooh,
the source
okay.
of it is deep below the earth, but this black ichor oozes up from it and grabs hold of anything it touches and changes it, corrupts it in a way.
Oh dang, yeah, we still have much to learn from it too, just in story as well.
Yep.
So that'll be fun if we're able to uncover that actually.
I have questions about like who and what, quote unquote, the shadow is, but I think that's going to be covered more in the game as we go on.
Yep. Yeah, the big overarching story of the Sonata series is, how do we fight this thing? What's the resolution to this?
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting to see if we're actually going to have a conclusion, or if that's something that's going to be kind of a big overall thing for the campaign. So I'm curious as to the next installment, if this actually will be resolved or not, and how much is revealed. So This will be really interesting, actually. So I do have one last question I want to say before we take our short little break and switch over to just questions in general about your characters and other things. You also put in a lot of Fae elements into this. Was that already pre-planned? You already wanted to have a lot of Fae involvement in this story? Or is it only really just kind of the forest part of it to kind of help with the lore?
It's kind of both. I do really enjoy the Feywild and the creatures that come from the Feywild, because they all share that same kind of desire for trickery, but a lot of them go about it in very different ways. Some of them are quite benign creatures, some of them are malicious creatures, some of them are friendly, helpful creatures, but they all are tricksters. And that really intrigued me, and I wanted to bring elements of those creatures into it. And it just also felt very fitting for this part of the world because of the events that transpired here in the past, because of the big powers that are in this world in the present, many of which you haven't met yet. It all just worked out perfectly to have the Fae be a big part of that.
I mean, it makes sense, especially with Antia's bloodline, altered bloodline of like an ASMR, not to mention the dragon's involvement and everything. It just kind of, it makes sense to me, at least.
Yeah.
The Fae also seem to have a big influence and a big hand in what happens across a lot of the areas of the world, as we've seen in the other campaigns as well, even the one shots.
Very true. Yeah, so it's we may not see much Underdark at all, but we got a lot of Fae going on, which I'm right there with you. Like, Faes, most of them, if not all of them, are definitely assholes, but they're really fun to interact with because they're so unique and
they're fun to control as well.
Yeah, and I bet.
What's nice about them from a storytelling perspective is that the Fae are a very neutral source. You know, they don't align with the, you know, stereotypical evil, and they don't align with the stereotypical good. They're right in the middle, and they can go either way or go neither way. And it really gives you a lot of freedom with what you want to do with them.
Yeah, and depending on the Fae, they side with you because they side with whatever side is going to be the most fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been fun to see that across different campaigns because they're actually helpful. Obviously, they have their own agenda. We're their own, you know, amusement, but they can be nice, but we have to be careful. It's like it doesn't matter. They're all about themselves and their ultimate goal in the end. We're just there for the ride and entertainment for them, which is always fun. But okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take a short break. Since we started just a little bit later, we're probably gonna end just about 10 or so minutes after to kind of catch up on that and give you the adequate time that you deserve. So get up, stretch, get some refreshments, and we'll be back here in just a few moments as we ask Shadow Fox. Wow, the other Fox, HB Fox.
I can be Shadow Fox for a day.
You can
I'll be a weird little lizard.
I mean, you were before. We'll remember Zoo. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry. And we are back.
Welcome back.
It's good timing on the music too. That was totally unexpected. All right. So once again, the December, !December for a chance to win, because at the very end of this, probably just a little bit past 7, we're going to go ahead and pull, and you have to be present. So just a quick little reminder on that, guys.
Before we get to the questions, I do want to add just a couple more things to the last thing that I was talking about.
Go for
the Shadow and Taiki.
Go for it.
In relation to that shared bloodline of theirs and what Eugene was doing, his servitude of Taiki is secret from the Shadow. The Shadow doesn't know that he is also working for Taiki.
Really?
And the Shadow and Taiki have the same goal, which is freedom, but their methods obviously differ greatly. And the connection that Durden was having, seeing through Eugene's eyes, was Taiki trying to show Durden that there was more to Eugene's actions than what was on the surface.
Oh, snap.
And all of this is, again, stuff that would be discovered in that town before you guys left. So I'm fine with revealing it here. But there's a lot going on with Eugene, and I think a lot will be revealed in the future. I was like 70% expecting him to die, so I thought a lot of this wouldn't be revealed in the future, but he's alive, so it may very well be.
I mean, in a way, it's good because we get more lore out of it.
Yeah. You never know. You may even call him an ally one day.
Well, we did scare the poop out of him. And
yeah, you did.
Then he took, like, several of our companions, so we will see if that even becomes a possibility.
He hasn't killed them, though.
They're
still alive.
He hasn't, but there's some bad juju happening with Kitty and little Kobold and other kitty, leopard kitty. And now Shu potentially. Yep. My guess is whatever happened to the others being manipulated or controlled is what's happening with Shu right now. That is my guess.
Stop going off on your own and it won't happen.
Well, this is gonna suck because I have to commit to my joke now, and I have to bring in a new character next time.
Sonata 4, you have to fight all your previous Eladrins.
That's dangerous. That's so dangerous. That actually is a good segue to, I know you kind of answered this before, but it's slightly altered, so we're just going to segue into this. With Shadow Fox, we all know what he's going to say. When are we having quarterly and full campaign installments? We already know we're doing a full campaign, potentially, after the 4th one. You also did mention maybe potentially quarterly.
Maybe quarterly. We'll have to see how the story plays out. Because before a campaign can start, I want to basically solidify the recreation of the Caldera Lyceum in Sonata's story before the campaign starts, because I want the campaign, not that I'm saying there is a campaign, but if there is a campaign, I want the campaign to be basically the build-up of the Lyceum to counter the Shadow. And so that has to be in motion and happening before a campaign can start.
I mean, it makes sense. You were going to need to give yourself time because you've been working so hard on this story. It would make sense you need to give yourself time to kind of flesh out a full campaign worth of story on top of that. But either way, it's going to be exciting. I enjoy very much the annual installments we have of this, so I'm definitely there with Shadow Fox wanting an actual campaign because the story is just so intriguing. But you definitely put a lot of thought into it. That it's a lot.
It's certainly a lot more work to create things for this campaign, as opposed to like for No Way Out, where there wasn't necessarily this big, heavy story that's taking place. It'll be interesting to maybe one day do a campaign in Sonata.
We will soon find out. By soon, maybe in the next year. Well, no, who knows? Okay, so we actually do have a lot of Sonata questions, which is really fun. One of them, this is from Gilatam. How much stuff was prepped for Sonata that wasn't used or missed? Of that stuff, is there anything that can be shared?
A lot. I treat Sonata differently than how I treated No Way Out. No Way Out, I kind of played it week to week, but Sonata, because it has a very distinct start and end, I plan out everything beforehand. And for things that need like big detailed descriptions, I write those descriptions beforehand, so I have them ready to go. I have all the nuanced points and details of things that happen, events that happen, and how they play out, all prepped beforehand. Now, that's not to say that's exactly how they're going to happen, because we all know players like to go off the rails, and I'm not going to get in the way of that. But a lot of the stuff that I prep and have prepped for all of the Sonatas just doesn't happen because of either time constraints, or the players go in a different direction, or they cause one of the NPCs to make a different decision than I had thought they would make. So it's not as on rails as you would expect. And because of that, a lot of it gets missed. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things, especially in a one-shot or a mini campaign, where it's like you have so much you want to give or discover, but it's kind of hard when we know, even as the players know, we're kind of pressed for time. We got to move the story along, and
yeah.
And then you put in a shopping episode.
Yeah, never again. Never again.
Shopping episodes are the bane of everything.
Because of that shopping episode. Shopping episodes, by the way, for you new DMs out there, if you're doing a full campaign, great. You don't have to prep jack. But if you're doing a mini adventure, never put in a shopping episode, because that's going to take up so much of your time. I had to cut out the whole forest thing in Sonata 1 because of the shopping episode. That's why Alcius ended up showing up later instead of in Sonata 1. Thankfully, in Sonata 3, content-wise, I didn't have to cut out a whole lot, but I did cut out a whole lot of dialogue and lore dumping. So there was that, which made me a little bit sad, because I'm a lore hound. I love talking about it all the time, but you got to get rid of it in order to stick to those time constraints.
Curse of the one shot.
Yep, this is why it just needs to be a campaign.
Yeah, that's why you just need to bite the bullet, make it a full campaign. Sonata 4 is actually episode 1 of the campaign.
Yeah, like I had planned in Sonata 3 to reveal what exactly it was that Eugene did to get himself exiled. I had planned on revealing a whole lot of lore about Winterclaw Keep, the keep itself, that is entirely unknown to everybody. But I had to skip over it because there just wasn't time.
Okay, so this is probably gonna happen. So when we announce Sonata 4 next year, or later this year, it's already next year. January 1st. Yeah, it's gonna be like a 2-month long, probably, because of just all the lore.
Yeah, there is a lot of lore, but it can be difficult sometimes, because you don't want to essentially just sit here and read a novel to the players. You want them to be a part of this learning and this discovery and finding this knowledge themselves. So you got to do it in a way that at least feels somewhat natural to the story,
right,
while also progressing the story. So that can be a little bit tough in lore heavy parts of adventures.
Okay. Yeah, I love lore. I'm a lore whore. That's one of the main reasons why I'm a BioWare fan, because it's all about the lore for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. As a player, I'd be all for just sitting here while the DM read us a novel. I'm for it.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes. I'm right there with you.
Yep. I live for it. So we're going to take just a quick little break from Sonata questions. We have quite a bit, but wanted to veer it off to a couple other little things. This is from Weirds. Cassius was a white dragonborn. I just now remember that. I thought it was blue for whatever reason. From season 1 of Destiny Forged. We already know, for those who don't know, Cassius has ascended to kind of a demigod void dragon situation. But let's say he didn't, for this hypothetical to kind of make this question work. Would he have been affected by the action of Ash during the events of season 2, or was it only white dragons affected, or was it only dragons that were affected by that instead of dragonborns? I guess it's more of a Rhojin question.
I was gonna say, I think this is more of a Rhojin question. My
true.
instinct is to say no, because they're completely different parts of the world, so I would assume different bloodlines.
Yeah, the Dragonborn weren't affected. It was only full-blooded dragons that were affected by the pretty much the genocide spear that you had.
Yeah, and it was that specific restored. Dragon's bloodline, right? If I remember correctly.
No, it was
all white dragons.
It was all white dragons. All white dragon.
He originally said bloodline, and then we found out it wasn't the bloodline. It was all white dragons.
It was all white dragons. But
yeah, that got
Dragonborn
so
would not be. Yeah, Dragonborn would not be affected by that.
It's okay. We fixed it, guys.
We did fix it, and let's just say, thank God it wasn't void dragons, because then technically, you would have been maybe oust, maybe. But you're kind of above a void dragon now. You're demigod.
I recently came across my notes from season 1 of the ritual that he did to become that creature, and the preparations that he had to do to the heart that he ate, and who he borrowed some of that magic from in order to do those preparations.
Oh.
And those were some nasty creatures that he briefly allied with to do that. So I don't know if calling him a full void dragon is quite right.
He's something, all right.
Yeah, he's a something dragon.
Something dragon.
Yeah. He's his own dragon. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Also by Weirds, since you are our resident map maker, which terrain do you enjoy creating for maps the most, be it large scale or small?
That's a good question. I like doing it all, really. I really enjoy drawing coastlines. Coastlines are always fun. I had a lot of fun doing the volcanoes for ODAG. That was the first time that I've done a volcano in that style, and it was really interesting to kind of figure out how to make it look good while also representing that kind of 2D flat image. So that was a lot of fun. But I think coastlines are my favorite. All the little islands and stuff that are scattered around them.
You know what? Let's just pull a One Piece and let's just do an area of the world that's just all islands and then just sail from island to island. That's the Tricorn Islands.
I was going to say, that's the Tricorn Islands.
Oh, shit! Yeah. There we go. I
have a map of that's like 30% complete.
Which I'm working on a campaign for.
I mean, I was so depressed about the pirate campaign. I want nothing more than to be part of a pirate campaign.
I have an idea. Well, I have lots of ideas for adventures and campaigns, but I would love to do like a non-magic, non-hero based sea adventure, where everyone is playing just like regular crewmen on a ship, like a whaler's vessel or something. And there's this whole pirate arc with it. And I mean, it's me, so I'll probably like make Cassius the captain of the boat or something just because I can.
Of course.
But
of course.
It would be like a non-hero based adventure on the sea with pirates that I'd love to do sometime.
I mean, that kind of gives you the freedom
so
too
we're the
of like
NPCs?
whatever.
Yeah, you're the NPCs.
I'm okay with that. We're not there to save the world. Maybe we're not there to destroy it. We're just there because
you're just
we can.
going to work that day, and
Yeah, exactly.
bad shit happens.
Exactly. And of course, Rhojin, if you have any questions, definitely jump in. You are more than welcome to interrupt me if you've got some lined up, because I do have a handful more questions to ask from the audience.
I do have a question. Now with everything being restored and a bit of normal put back into her life, what are Zale's future plans now that Yith is back to being technically mortal?
Zale is... how much can I say without like just giving away her whole epilogue?
That's true. We haven't really given away our epilogues yet, not until the one-shots are over.
Yeah, Zale is, much to her own dismay, going to continue playing the politician. She, when her time on the material plane is done, she wants to make sure that Dagger Tree has secured its place, at least in this part of the world, that it is no longer in danger of being forgotten, of being removed, of being wiped out, of being assimilated even, because she wants the Knolls to still have their own culture and their own history, but not be seen as monsters anymore. And she's done a lot of work towards that, but you know, politics is a long game. It's a generational game, and she understands that. So she wants to make sure that everything is put in place for the next matriarch to continue what she started to build.
Well, Subira would definitely want to help.
Kind of, I get a little bit emotional thinking about Zale in this way, because I know she doesn't have a lot of time left in the world. She's old for a Knoll, and she's gonna be ancient by the time the next matriarch takes over. So it's like the rest of her life is more or less politics.
What's the lifespan of a Knoll? Wasn't it like 50 or 60?
It's if you allow them to die of old age, which never happens, but if you allow them to, it's about 70.
Oh, okay. But Zale's like 40 something, isn't she?
She's well past the halfway point. So.
Okay.
And she's been burning it at both ends for a long time.
She's still getting knocked up. All right.
There's still one more to come.
Oh God.
Yeah. When she initially, quote unquote, retired, I had planned out how many kids she was going to have, what the spacing was, and the last one was left up to a dice roll. So it's an unplanned child. So there's one more to come.
Does that mean that this, unlike their brothers and sisters, is this one just going to be full on just normal Knoll?
Normal Knoll. Yep.
Yeah, since Yith is no longer sharing a body with the keeper.
Yep.
I have in my notes here somewhere the spacing of it.
Oh, that's right. Yixis would too. Yeah, so you have a couple people from No Way Out that actually would be willing to kind of help break that mold of what is a typical Knoll by being like, no, we are not mindless beasts.
Yeah. So Dale had her first daughter, Zayla.
Yep.
And then 1.2 years later, Arta and Anik, the twins, were born. And Arta, the female of the twins, is destined to be the next matriarch. And then 15 years after that is when the surprise child will be born. And her name is Nea.
The child of surprise? What?
I'm not putting Henry Cavill in the D&D game.
Yeah.
No, just Siri. Technically. Oh, that's great though. I love that. Yeah, that's something I'm still very much looking forward to that we haven't revealed yet, that we're not going to until we're done. But it's all of our characters' epilogues for Destiny Forge.
Without giving any of the epilogue away, I have the rest of Zale's story plan.
Good, because I want to know. Because Ash would very much still keep in touch with her and all that good stuff. So, just because she's retired doesn't mean they're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
So kind of a follow-up to that actually is what Azran asked earlier is Zale really okay with Rose babysitting her kids, or was it more desperation to get a break?
Zale has no issues with it. I mean, they're Knoll kids. There's nothing you can do to screw that up. As much as Rose would like to think there's something that she can do, they're Knolls. There's nothing you can do to screw that up.
They're already screwed up. No, I'm kidding.
And I mean, with them being like demigods on top of that, all of Zale and Yith's children very much take after their parents in different respects. And I mean, you traveled with Zale. You can't beat that personality out of them. You're just stuck with it.
Yep.
Trust us, they've tried.
Yeah.
Yep. The next couple of questions, and again, Rhojin, feel free to step in anytime with more questions. But from Shadow Fox, why did Alcius give only Kage a Bamf out of jail free card?
Short answer, because she's not done with him.
Ooh.
She has plans for him and intent for his future. She's not going to force him to do anything or make certain decisions or act in any certain way, but I mean, she's Fae, so you know, she's all about influencing people to do certain things in certain ways, and
especially another Fae.
Yeah, especially another Fae, especially a Fae that is the mortal version of her own bloodline. So she sees a lot of potential in what he can do, and her desire is for him to be a part of the rebuilding of the Lyceum. And so she wanted to ensure that he remained alive.
That's pretty awesome. I figured it was like, she's like, nah, we got work to do. I didn't even think of this one. This is a clever one. Okay. Also from Shadow Fox, was Snowdrop helping to keep the Shadow's emotional balance in check when she was kind of gooped up against that wall?
That's a good question. And I'm glad somebody put two and two together there. Yes, in fact.
I knew
Snowdrop,
their ability.
Yeah. So Snowdrop was taken by the Shadow because the Shadow knew of her ability and wanted to utilize it to help bring people into the fold, to not necessarily take control of people, because it's not what the Shadow does, but to plant the Shadow's own desires into people with more ease. And it was using Snowdrop's ability in order to do that. But it backfired slightly in kind of corrupting the Shadow itself with that calming sense that
Ooh.
Snowdrop has, and it helped to keep a lot of the nastier effects of the corruption at bay. And that's one of the reasons why Nazareth and Ziggs didn't show any outward physical corruptions, despite having the shadow within them, because it was held back by Snowdrop.
Even unconsciously, she's trying to protect her friend.
Yeah, she is.
So does that mean the shadow's gonna get even grumpier now that Durden is
no.
there?
It sure does.
Oh no, it's gonna be worse.
See, Forge
No
should have
check.
been put in there.
God
What are you
damn
gonna get
it.
from a robot? Oh no, the shadow got more logical.
Oh God.
I think it would have gone in a different direction if Forge had gone in there, because as you said yourself, Forge has emotions now, but he doesn't know how to act
Feel?
on them in ways outside of anger. So that anger would have been infused into the shadow.
So it would have been bad either way, to be honest.
The shadow is just now a confused, angry teenager. Wonderful.
I don't know why I'm angry, but I'm pissed off at the world.
I had things planned out for all types of outcomes in that scenario.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah, and you didn't see it, and I know it's hard to see visually on screen because I've blocked myself, but when you said your answer, Shadow Fox totally did the, like, fuck yeah, I'm right. Was super happy that he got right. I didn't even put that two and two together. I know that we kind of guessed that maybe it was her ability doing something, but I wasn't thinking of the shadow itself keeping in check. I thought it would be something else entirely, but that is awesome. I'm super excited about that.
I do have a question pertaining to Campaign 3. As both Mia and a player in the game, what are your expectations for like your character and for where like the campaign is heading? Or what are your theories or expectations?
It's very early, but there's a lot to think of.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I necessarily have any theories or I have worries. There's
okay,
that.
let's put worries in there too.
I have some of those.
But let's put worries in there too, because I think there's a lot of worries from a lot of you.
One of the big worries that I as a player have and Mia as a character has, despite the group seeming to be relatively okay with magic, she knows that Lord Alistair serves a group that serves the church, even if Alistair himself is one of the good ones. He serves a group that serves the bad ones in her mind. And so if those bad ones ever asked his group to ask him if any of the people that he traveled with knew magic, I mean, what's he gonna do? Put himself in harm's way to lie for people he's, spent a day with? Or is he gonna be like, oh yeah, these two people know magic, I'm gonna go on my way now? And now suddenly the church knows that we're a bunch of witches and we're being hunted. So that's one of my big worries, is that those outside companies are going to learn these secrets. And that's one of the big reasons why she's so reluctant as well to act on her abilities.
I mean, in the words of a gecko folk, hermit.
Yep, hermit.
Yeah, he's the only one that has one, though.
You don't know that.
I feel like the church probably wouldn't give a goblin a permit to...
You don't know that.
...do arcane magic.
Episode 4, you don't know jack shit.
I don't know jack shit. But yeah, that I think is my biggest worry right now, is word getting back to the church that we are heretics. I'm confident that Alistair isn't going to go out of his way to tell people, but that doesn't mean people aren't going to go out of their way to ask him.
We just have to give a reason not to have the mask of, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's why she wasn't also on board with they said any means necessary. Yeah, they said any means necessary, but that doesn't mean they aren't going to take that information and give it to the people we don't want to have that information.
You didn't see the asterisk saying they could share your information.
Exactly. When we agreed to do this job, we also agreed to allowing them to sell our information to the highest bidder.
Again, why do you think that I'm not worried about showing magic? Wink, wink. Yeah, I know it's very, very new. It's very early on, so I wanted to have questions for Mia, but I feel like 4 episodes in, I wouldn't have... It would just be too soon, because there's still so much that needs to be revealed and learned about this character, and it's something I'm very much looking forward to in-game, so when we circle back around and have you be the guest again on here, we'll probably be much further along in this story, and it'll be a lot more fun to
there's a lot about that character that was created specifically for this campaign that I really want to talk about, but hasn't necessarily been revealed yet, so I can't really talk about it.
Just to put my 2 cents into that, just to Rhojin's question, is now that for the first time, I think ever, maybe, at least in a very, very long time, that we have wizards. I know Yixis was a wizard, but this is like the first time now it's like we have 2 wizards in a campaign. I'm hoping to do every wizard's dream and find frickin' books with spells in them so I can do stuff. So otherwise me and Mia are just going to be back and forth once we become friends, if we become friends, going like, hey, want to share?
Yeah, I kind of have that concern as well, especially since because of the subclass that I took, I have to take that subclass's spells before I can take any other spells. So a lot of the spells that I'm going to have that are outside of that subclass's list are going to be gained from scrolls and books and stuff, but we're in a part of the world that kind of shakes their finger at that, so I don't know how much of that we're really going to find.
I mean, we just have to find the right places, if nothing else.
Yeah,
they exist, it's just they're more than likely hidden. We just got to find them. So
well, once we're a cohesive group, like I mentioned, I think last session, we got to plan a church heist so we can steal all their weapons and all of their magical scrolls and all that good stuff.
I'm on board with that. Let's do it. We'll probably ask a couple more questions before we wrap this up. I do have one more question from Shadow Fox. Is there any chance that Antia could learn to coexist with her other side and they could start to begin working together? Is that a possibility at all?
That is not. With her, it's not a possibility. There's so much animosity between the two of them, and there's so much anger that they share over each other that I don't really see any scenario where the two of them are ever going to get along. There might be scenarios where they briefly work together towards a certain goal, like if they're, I don't know, trapped somewhere and it's long enough that the change is taking place at some point, they might work together then to get out of that scenario, but they coexist only by necessity, not by choice.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, it's a very Jekyll and Hyde kind of relationship, and anyone who's read the classic story, they never got along at all.
Yeah, her werewolf form is like classic werewolf, where it is not a creature that can be reasoned with. It is not a creature that you can convince to be on your side. It is an independent that only has its own goals and its own base necessities in mind, and to hell with everyone else.
Just get the werewolf near Snowdrop. They'll hug it out.
Snowdrop would be food, I'm afraid.
That's fair. That is fair.
Yeah, those werewolves, the way that I treat true lichens, not cursed lichens, true, like born with it, lycans is, again, in the very classic werewolf sense, where they can be felled, but they regenerate very, very quickly. The only way to really kill one of them is to remove their head. Otherwise, they're just going to get right back up.
Yeah, that's awkward. Rhojin, did you have any other questions you want to ask? Because I got one more from my arsenal.
Do, but it's all going to be one of those wait until the epilogue style questions. Because I have a ton of questions about Kyo and Zale, but it's going to be one of those, it will be covered in the epilogue.
Yeah, and that's the downside. We did have our special wrap-up, which was a ton of fun and eye-opening, but we still didn't do our epilogue, as we keep repeating in this episode. We're so close.
We had talked about it, but we hadn't really decided on when we're going to do them. I think probably after the tournament episode, whenever we do that, it's probably a good time for the epilogues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we still have a small handful of one-shots to do too, but that actually would be good, because that's kind of like the ta-da!
I think the shit list is just, things that, the characters wanted to do. It's not necessarily, their epilogue. Is just something that took place after the rejoining of the timelines.
Yeah, an epilogue can span like decades after the end of the campaign, so those one-shots can just be any time within those decades.
Yeah. I apologize. I did skip a question, so yes, we're making this slightly longer, but we'll try to wrap up soon. From Rosa Flower, when do you think Kyo will figure out her druidic connections screwed her over with age? I know we kind of talked about this during the wrap-up, about her realizing that she's hit that point.
Yeah. Kyo is very observant of the world, but she's not very observant of herself. So just whenever it comes up that she happens to notice she isn't really aging, at least not at the normal rate, is when that will occur. I don't inherently have it written into her epilogue. And I mean, we may come across something in one of the one-shots, for example, that does some sort of weird ass magic on her, and it's like, oh hey, you're not aging, by the way, weird ass druid. So it could come up at any point. I don't have it written in. I don't really have a reaction planned either. With much of Kyo's story, a lot of it is just going to be in the moment,
which is fun. It's always fun because you go all wide-eyed and go, what?
She's a fun character. I miss her already.
Yeah, I miss us. I have a question about Vera. Vera, as we all know, fought in the First Contact War, aka killing humans, and has become friends with a human. Is this slowly changing Vera to kind of, I don't want to say open up and like humans, but kind of give them the benefit of the doubt and maybe even potentially coexist with them so soon after the war?
She is that's hard. She is open to giving individuals the chance to show that they are different from the perception that the galaxy has of them at the moment. She has given Mercy that opportunity. She has given Mel that opportunity, more or less because she didn't have a choice, but it's made her realize that, well, maybe some people are worth that opportunity. Her general opinion of humans is still that they are a nuisance and they put their noses where their noses shouldn't be, and that they are very hard-headed and don't like to play by the rules. And as somebody that loves to play by the rules, that really gets on her nerves.
That almost sounded like you described a Turian. Almost.
Yeah, well, don't let Vera hear this, but Turians and humans, pretty similar.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty much the same thing, except one's, bird-like.
Yeah. So she she hasn't necessarily had a change of heart for the species, but she does think some individuals are worth that opportunity.
Which has been really fun seeing the growth. I mean, we're still pretty young in this campaign too, only about 30 episodes in, and it's still fun to see everyone actually kind of grow, especially you, because I was excited to see how you would interact with humans when Kiara came into the mix, and it's kind of fun seeing you adjust. But of course, you haven't really interacted with too many humans at this point, so it's like hard to see how else she'd react other than I will tolerate it in the moment.
Yeah, she's certainly had a number of moments where Mel has said something or done something, and Vera's first reaction is kind of, well, let's just disregard her because she's a human. But then she stops herself and is like, well, wait a minute. No, she's a part of the crew. Let's give her a moment, give her a chance. But she very much would like walk into a human settlement the same way that she did on that planet where she feels like she should be the one in charge.
Of course. Rhojin, did you want to wrap up with one more question? Or wait until the
I don't have any.
I know, again, there's like a handful of questions I want to say, but
I do
later.
have one.
Oh, okay.
Pertaining to Mass Effect. How does Vera feel about now being on a full Krogan ship now?
Oh,
she is a fan of the space, not a fan of it being a Krogan ship. I think she showed a little bit of that in the last episode when she was like so excited to see that Turian ship again, and she was like going on about how sleek and stylish they are, and if she had the choice between a Krogan ship or a Turian ship, she'd pick a Turian ship every single time.
She would pick the wrong one.
Yeah.
So you got the sleek, beautiful looking Turian ship, and then you have a giant flying space gun.
Yeah. So every day when she wakes up, it's like, I've got so much space in here. Oh, this is Krogan.
Yeah, but you can run laps inside now, so
Yeah, but it doesn't have that style of the Turians,
Of course.
It's form and function in her mind for Turian stuff.
Right.
It looks good, and it does exactly what a ship like that would do.
It'll be fun to see what else happens.
My hope is at some point, I know Zoro keeps saying no to like fighters and stuff, but one day maybe she can make room on this ship to store a Turian interceptor for herself.
I do have another wish.
Yeah, because the size of ship, I know it looks huge, like when you look at the picture, but it really it's not like an armada or anything like that.
No.
It's a smaller ship. It's meant for a decent sized crew, but and it is large because of that, because there's a lot of extra rooms on top of the crew that it could fit, but it's not meant to be this huge ship that's supposed to have a whole army on it.
Yeah, it's actually the smallest ship out of the Turian armada. This is like the smallest ship.
Because I think this is a form of frigate too, if I remember correctly.
Frigate,
it's just on the larger scale of it.
Yep.
And that's why when the day comes that I try to get an interceptor, I'll be going for an interceptor, not like an actual fighter or anything, because the interceptors are the smallest of the craft, and they're meant for like planet side flight. They're not meant for space flight and stuff like that.
Right.
So maybe one day we can get Mel to like convert one of the bigger cargo bays to have like bottom opening doors so that we could just fly the interceptors up in there and the doors can close beneath us, and
it's possible.
We'll see.
I mean, you guys are level 7. I am definitely not saying you can never have one. It's just a matter of, well, let's wait and see them grow and see what they want to do, and then maybe I'll give them something super crazy like that.
and you know what? It's not even it's entirely a vanity thing. Like, I can't really think of any
course.
scenario that we've been in where an interceptor would be useful, but being able to say you have one, that's
fair.
what I want.
I'll tell you right now, if and when you guys do get one, I totally want to pull a Phantom Menace and do some sort of, like, race.
Pod racing?
That would be awesome.
Pod racing, yeah. I think that would be so much fun. It's something I kind of, like, thought about, but I'm like, well, I'm going to wait until they get one. When I allow it. That would be
awesome. Especially since I think Vera would love that, because she's been itching to do some piloting, but this isn't her ship. So she's not going to, force herself into that position. She's happy being a navigator. And she follows the chain of command, but she really wants to do some piloting.
I mean, just wait. I mean, get a little bit closer to Brockus and we'll see what he says. Or wait until he's asleep and Mercy takes over, and then she's like, here, take the reins.
Yo, Mercy knows the rules. Mercy knows the rules.
I'll wait until Mercy's in charge, then I'll just kind of, creep in on her. Hey, Mercy, I think the doggos really want to go play right now.
Oh, yeah, she would totally, yeah.
And if you don't tell your daddy, you can have some chocolate milk afterwards.
Really?
How dare you make my daughter abandon her post?
Yep. I mean, she's still 8. She is still 8.
She's still 8.
Yeah. She's responsible for an 8-year-old, surprisingly enough, but she's still 8. So with that, we're actually going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much, HB Fox, for answering all those questions for us today. And of course, thank you, Rhojin, for hanging out with us and asking those questions as well. And even answering one. So we're going to go ahead and do the giveaway, actually. So one more time, I'm going to flash that picture up on our screen. It is the Pink Senorita set from the Kraken Dice. So you have just a few more seconds to do the exclamation mark Dicember for your chance to win this pretty pink set. I'll give y'all a chance before we close that out. Before we do that, I'll go ahead and I'll do our little spiel, where we are not the only show on this channel. We have several, in fact. On Monday, we have our Mass Effect Horizons game, where I DM a bunch of spacers known as the Mimsy 6. Going off on their adventures working for a Spectre. And then on Tuesday, we have our Campaign 3 of Destiny Forge, where Rhojin is taking us to a new place where it's kind of semi-horror, dark, winter wonderland. Then we have our 2 alternating Saturday shows, Withered Waste, which is our Arcanapocalypse type wasteland game, also DM'd by Rhojin. And then the alternating Saturday is the Wayward Wanderers, which is a Pathfinder 2 campaign based off the Extinction Curse, where Azrin runs them through that game. And then, of course, we have this show, Behold Lore, which is our once a month, the first Saturday of the month, lore show where we talk about our games, whether it be one-shots, campaigns, and everything in between. And we do have guests on here, so we will let you guys know what we're going to talk about next and who we're going to bring on next afterwards. So keep an eye out on our social medias, and we'll let you know what's coming. And of course, if you miss anything, we do post everything on our YouTube channel, so you guys can check it out. All right, where are we at? Ooh, Kitra, congratulations. What did you win?
Please tell me you're here to claim this, because you've been entering so many of these and haven't been drawn
Yay!
yet.
There we go.
Finally got one.
Yes, got our last one for our Dicember giveaways. Congratulations, hun. And that is it this year for our Dicember. We will probably more than likely do that again next year, but we like to give back to our community, so thank you guys so much for supporting us, watching us, loving us, and all those beautiful donations to Extra Life that we always very much appreciate and enjoy, because we are a non-profit channel.
We are
straight
children.
to the kids.
We are children.
Too. Yeah, that too. Non-profit channel that gives to the children. That's what I was trying to say. Came out the other way. It worked out. So once again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We will see you again this upcoming Monday for our next installment of Mass Effect Horizons. And until then, we will see you guys next month for our next lore show. Until then, guys, have a good evening.